Good afternoon. Okay, I'd like to call to order the 19th Annual Justice John Paul Stevens Award Lunch. I am Stephen Elrod, the President of the Chicago Bar Association, and with me is Carrie DeSanto, the President of the Chicago Bar Foundation. Together, we welcome you to this event, and in the spirit of my predecessor in office, Judge Tom Mulroy, we've arranged for it to be a very efficient lunch ceremony. It's a very important lunch ceremony with wonderful, wonderful recipients, but I promise that we're going to complete the festivities by 1:15. In order to do that, we have videotaped all of the award recipient speeches, so no orchestra music to exit them. We've already edited the video. And we've even videoed the remarks of Justice Stevens, who unfortunately couldn't be with us, but we went down to Florida and recorded his remarks and edited them down. So we're keeping this moving in an orderly fashion. First, I want to acknowledge those members of our dais who are not going to be receiving awards this evening. Honorable the Justice of the United States of the Illinois Supreme Court, Ann Burke, not yet. Justice Tom Kilbride of the Illinois Supreme Court. The Chief Judge of the United States District Court, Ruben Castillo. And the Chief Judge of the Cook County Circuit Court, Timothy Evans. I also want to acknowledge some very special guests that are in the room this afternoon. It is no coincidence that we timed and scheduled today's lunch to coincide with our city's hosting for the first time, thanks to Aurora Austriaco, the World City Bar Leaders Conference. We wanted to showcase to the world our talented lawyers and judges. So joining us today and wearing name tags that look like this with flags from throughout the world are delegations from the bar associations from Amsterdam, Barcelona, Beijing, Brussels, London, Frankfurt, Montreal, New York, Paris, Shanghai, Tokyo, and Warsaw. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to the members of those delegations that are right up here. You can rise, please. Bar City leaders, please rise in your seats. Okay, so, as will be explained in just a moment, this award is in the name of the wonderful Justice John Paul Stevens, who served as Justice of the United States Supreme Court from 1975 until his retirement in 2010, making him one of the longest-serving Supreme Court justices in United States history. Prior to his service on the Supreme Court, he was an active member of the Chicago legal community as both a practicing lawyer and as an active member of the judiciary, including the United States Court of Appeals for the Seventh Circuit. And he was a very active member of the Chicago Bar Association. Indeed, in 1970, he ascended to a position of leadership. So we are very, very proud to be bestowing this award in the name of Justice John Paul Stevens, a homegrown native. We are going to roll remarks from Justice Stevens at this time.
Well, I'm happy to participate in the annual event in my name, honoring members of the Chicago Bar an event that every year makes me very proud of the Chicago Bar and its membership and its contribution to the community. I have been felt very proud every year that I've been involved in one of these occasions. I feel the same way today, and I can just say that the list of honorees is very impressive, as it always is, as it always makes me proud of the Chicago Bar Association and the work it does for the community and for the profession. And I certainly am happy to play a small role in this occasion.
And now, to provide you with a little background and history of the Justice Stevens Award, Carrie DeSanto, President of the Chicago Bar Foundation. Carrie?
Good afternoon. I'm so honored to serve as the president of the CBF this year, and I'd like to welcome you all here today. It's such a privilege to be here with so many distinguished guests, friends, and several of my mentors. It is a true honor today. As many of you know, the Justice Stevens Award was conceived by Justice Stevens' former law clerks and the CBA and the CBF as a tribute to Justice Stevens and to honor those attorneys in our community who best exemplify his commitment to integrity, public service in the practice of law. This was first presented in the year 2000, and I think those of you who know the former list of recipients recognize this really is the Hall of Fame of our legal community in Chicago. And as you'll soon see in person, this year's honorees are truly worthy additions to this esteemed group of lawyers in our community. As the charitable arm of the CBA, the CBF is committed to carrying on Justice Stevens' commitment to the noblest traditions of our profession by working to ensure that our justice system is fair and accessible for everyone in our community. Justice Stevens' pro bono and public service in his career, both as a practicing lawyer and as a judge, should be an inspiration to us all in this community to step up and fulfill our leadership roles in fighting to fulfill our nation's fundamental principle for equal access to justice for all. I know already that most of you here are strong supporters of the work of the CBF, so I thank you so much on behalf of myself, Bob Glaves, and the great staff of the CBF. You may know that this year marks the 70th anniversary of the CBF, and there's a timeline on your table that highlights some of the great work and accomplishments of the CBF in our city, our state, and our country. And this has, as I said, been made possible through the tremendous staff at the CBF. If you have not gotten involved yet, or you have not become aware that it's the 70th anniversary, I hope that you'll join many of your colleagues in supporting a cause that's so fundamental to who we are as a profession and so in line with the purposes of the Justice Stevens Award today. And there's also information at your table on how you can make a contribution in honor of the 70th anniversary, and I think it would be a wonderful way to give tribute to our honorees here today. Thank you all again for coming today and all you do to make the CBF's work possible. I look forward to working with many of you this year as president of the CBF. I want to especially congratulate today's honorees, many of whom are deeply involved in access to justice and pro bono issues and are great friends of the CBF. This is a wonderfully talented and diverse group of honorees, and I could not be more proud to have participated in the luncheon today. I hope you'll enjoy the program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carrie. We'll pause for a couple of minutes. Enjoy your lunch quickly, and we'll be right back. Just want to take a moment to make sure you're aware of some wonderful events that are coming up at the Chicago Bar Association. On the back page of your program, on Friday the 19th, we are hosting the 50-year membership luncheon for the Bar Association. We have more than 75 people coming to our event that have been a member of the Bar Association for 50 years. They're celebrating their 50th year. That's terrific. On the same date, the the Barristers Big Band is having a concert. On Wednesday, November 7th, the Chicago Bar Association Symphony Orchestra and the Chicago Bar Association Chorus is having an event at St. James Cathedral. And beginning on November 29th, I encourage you all to join me at the Bar Show, formerly known as the Christmas Spirits Show. The Bar Show is a phenomenal event. All lawyers are members of the show. It's a terrific evening, November 29th, December 1, and December 2. Please mark your calendars. And then finally, I hope you'll all join me on our continuing legal education trip this spring, the annual Bar Association CLE trip abroad. This year we're starting in Amsterdam and ending in Jerusalem, Israel. If you're interested in attending this trip, please contact the Bar Association. There's information on your seat. Join me there as well. Okay. Are we ready to begin with our first award recipient? We're going to play a video, and then I'm going to ask that recipient to join Carrie and me and receive his or her award. First is Laurel G. Bellows.
There is a special place in my heart for the Chicago Bar Association and the Chicago Bar Foundation. Thank you for this honor. The news that I would receive the Justice Stevens Award left me speechless for a few seconds. This award is special because I was selected by peers who I so greatly admire for their own contributions to our profession. Recognition by peers is humbling enough, but an award in the name of Justice John Paul Stevens, the consummate, courageous advocate, a man who believes that we are all equal before the law, no matter how complex the reality of that promise may be. An Aries, the fire sign we share, overwhelming. And the icing is the men and women who accept this award with me today, each the epitome of a lifetime of service. If you see a turtle on top of the flagpole, you know she didn't get there by herself. So many of you play an important role in my life. Thank you for your years of support. And please forgive me for not mentioning each of you. I have only a short period of time to share a few thoughts. I travel the world. Each time I return home with passport in my hand and tears in my eyes, grateful that I was born a citizen of this nation. The Statue of Liberty in the foyer of our Bar Association moves with the times. As you walk up the stairs, you see Liberty pushing her head up forward toward the sky. But at times you see Liberty sucked downward into the bronze. As lawyers, we know that if this experiment in democracy we call the United States of America is to endure, we lawyers must be courageous and vigilant. Our government's not immune to the upheaval of the rule of law that is occurring throughout our world. Our knowledge that democracy is fragile binds us together, demands our attention if we are to sustain our country's promise of possibilities. Today, in our country, inequality surrounds us. We tolerate injustice. We speak about equality, yet we refuse to adopt a constitutional amendment that declares men and women are equal. We refuse to strengthen the Equal Pay Act. We even dispute the word equality, some claiming that our different heights and weights and abilities preclude us from being equal human beings under the law. Yes, women of all colors are learning to succeed in this male culture, which was established over thousands of years. Yes, many good men make space in the existing culture for women colleagues to excel. But we are not yet engaged in building a new shared culture which serves everyone. Today's recognition encourages me to do more, to do it faster, to ramp up the fight against discrimination, for equal pay, for ERA, for the eradication of slavery in our country, for voting rights, for access to justice, and the fight to preserve our jury. Esther Rothstein, Joel Bellows, in return for your trust and your mentorship, I promised to pay it forward. Thank you all for giving me the opportunity to keep my promise.
Our next recipient, Carol A. Brooke. Turn to the screen, please.
Did you ever know that you're my hero? You're everything.
I have played Bette Midler singing that song to Justice Stevens at the National Baby Defender Seminar every year since the court decided Kiles versus Whitley in 1995. In that case, the court ruled that Curtis Kiles could not be put to death because the state had failed to disclose so much exculpatory evidence at his trial. In his lengthy dissent, Justice Scalia excoriated the court for fact-finding to reach its conclusion, despite the dire consequences. In his response, Justice Stevens wrote a 2-paragraph concurrence. And in that concurrence, he said, quote, "Sometimes the performance of an unpleasant duty conveys a message more important than even the most penetrating legal analysis." With that one sentence, Justice Stevens gave hope, not just to Curtis Kiles, but to thousands like him and to all defenders who must have hope to do this very important but very difficult work, fighting for justice for their clients. I am honored to receive this award from the Chicago Bar Association and Foundation, and proud to accept it on behalf of my brave clients and the extraordinary men and women I have been privileged to work with at the Federal Defender Program and on its panel. Thank you.
Our next award recipient, Kevin P. Durkin.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Kevin Durkin. I want to thank the Chicago Bar Association and the Chicago Bar Foundation for this great honor. I look at the other recipients this year and recipients of years past and feel they are much more deserving of this honor than I am. However, I'm very appreciative. I had the good fortune of meeting Justice John Paul Stevens before. In 2006, I was the Chicago Bar Association president, and he would come in every year for this luncheon and attend. And as president, I was going to sit next to him, and I was a little bit concerned about the conversation. How was I going to talk to this great legal scholar? I am not a legal scholar. In fact, no one believes I'm a legal scholar. So he sat down, and I introduced myself, and we started talking, and all he wanted to talk about was his great love of Chicago and his great love of baseball. That was right in my wheelhouse. I remember him telling me that he was at the World Series in 1932 as a young adult, or young child, and he saw Babe Ruth play, and In that particular game he was at, Babe Ruth took his bat and pointed to center field, indicating he was going to hit a home run. Well, the next pitch, whatever you want to call him, the Bambino or the Sultan of Swing, Sultan of SWAT, hit a monster home run to center field at Wrigley Field. If Justice John Paul Stevens says it happened, I believe it. I'm telling you this story not because I want to talk about baseball. I wanted to let you know what a great person, what a down-to-earth person, what a great human being Justice John Paul Stevens is, in addition to being one of the top legal scholars of all time. I also want to acknowledge the fact that I've benefited from being hired by my partner, Bob Clifford, in 1988. Bob has pushed all of our attorneys over the years to practice in a professional manner and with integrity, and to serve the community, the legal community, as much as we can. So I have to thank him for that and for mentoring me and the other lawyers at the Clifford Law Offices on that. We in the legal community are very fortunate. We have the Chicago Bar Association with the current leadership of Steve Elrod, and the Chicago Bar Foundation with the current leadership of Carrie DeSanto. We all know here that these organizations are capably run by their executive directors, Terry Murphy and Bob Glaves. All of these people have the qualities that Justice Stevens inspired us all to have. Thank you, everyone. Have a great afternoon.
Our next recipient is John N. Gallo. Please watch the screen.
Equal justice under law. This is the phrase engraved on the facade of the United States Supreme Court, a phrase repeatedly cited by Justice Stevens and the other justices who served there. It is the ultimate end of our legal system and our calling as lawyers. It is axiomatic that for justice to be equal, it should be the same in both substance and availability to all without regard to economic status. Today, it is not. The reality in civil cases is that for those living in poverty, equal access to justice is a promise but not a practice. Most people who cannot afford to hire a lawyer cannot secure legal assistance. They typically face an opposing party who can afford and has a lawyer. They have rights to assert but are not aware of those rights or do not know how to assert those rights. They end up on their own in a system designed by lawyers for lawyers. They stand alone in a courtroom in proceedings where they risk losing their children, their home, or their job. They stand alone while they seek a restraining order against an abuser. The good news is that each of us as Chicago lawyers can do something to narrow the widening justice gap. Each of us can volunteer to stand next to those otherwise alone in a courtroom facing a represented opposing party. Each of us can provide financial support to one of the many fine legal aid organizations in this city. Most importantly, each of us can spread the word about this widening justice gap, both that it is happening and why it threatens the legitimacy of the phrase on the Supreme Court facade. Thank you to the Chicago Bar Association for this amazing honor, and thank you for listening. Now, spread the word.
And now, the next recipient, Terry L. Masherin.
Thank you, Chicago Bar Association and Chicago Bar Foundation, for this honor. I am humbled that you find me worthy to receive an award that is named for one of my personal heroes. One of the joys of my term as president of the CBA was hosting this award ceremony in the year when Justice Stevens retired from the court. Sitting next to the justice on the dais that evening, I was at last able to satisfy my curiosity and ask the justice if a law firm myth was true. Did he really leave Jenner and Block because Judge Thompson docked him a day's pay for traveling to Springfield to be sworn into the bar? I won't disclose the answer. You'll have to ask the justice yourself. Justice Stevens surely is the model for a life well lived. In this day when the rule of law and the independence of the courts are under attack, Justice Stevens holds fast to the view that in litigation, issues of law or fact should not be determined by majority vote. It is the business of judges to be indifferent to unpopularity. On this occasion, as we celebrate the legacy of Justice Stevens, I hope that each of us will ask what we can do today, this week, this year to defend the rule of law. It is our privilege, it is our professional obligation. I'm very sorry that I am not able to be in Chicago today to celebrate this great honor. A trial in New York keeps me away. Congratulations to my fellow honorees, especially to my classmate Tina and my fellow past presidents Laurel and Kevin. You are all so deserving. Thank you to my firm, Jenner & Block, for providing me such wonderful mentors who encouraged me to get involved in the organized bar. And thank you to the Chicago Bar Foundation and the Chicago Bar Association.
Accepting for Terry is Jenner & Block's managing partner, Terry Truex. Our next award recipient, Justice Scott Neville. Please watch the screen.
In my opinion, the most important provision codified in the United States and Illinois constitutions is the Equal Protection Clause. That clause provides the foundation for our American system of justice. To me, equal justice means that no person will be unseen and no person will be unheard. It means that there is no black justice or white justice, no rich justice or poor justice. It means that every person will receive equal justice. My review of Justice John Paul Stevens' decisions reveals that he too believed in equal justice for all. It is for that reason it is such a high honor to be the recipient of an award named after Justice Stevens, who was often referred to by commentators as the Chief Justice of the liberal Supreme Court. I am humbled that my name will be associated with a justice who is a member of that pantheon of great jurists who sat on the United States Supreme Court. I would not have been elevated to the Supreme Court, nor would I have been the recipient of this award without my parents, Attorney P. Scott Neville Sr., and my mother, Educator Alice Neville, setting a high bar and insisting upon excellence. Without my grandmother's prayers, without the encouragement of my brothers and sisters, and without the support of my wife, Sharon Neville. In conclusion, I would like to thank the Chicago Bar Association for bestowing this award on me. I would like to congratulate the other recipients of the Stevens Award, who are great lawyers and judges in their own right. And finally, I challenge everyone to work to ensure that all persons receive equal justice under law.
Our next recipient, Justice Jesse Reyes.
In my opinion, in the legal profession, there is no greater honor than to receive the prestigious Justice John Paul Stevens Award, for I have long admired Justice Stevens and viewed him as a role model to follow. Justice Stevens, as a lawyer and as a jurist, personifies all that is right and just in our profession. His unwavering commitment to justice, his stoic courage in following the rule of law, even if it meant going against the grain of what was popular or trendy, are attributes which I have always sought to emulate. More importantly, Justice Stevens has served as a constant reminder that we must conduct ourselves with the utmost courtesy and civility, a sentiment which I have always sought to incorporate into my professional life and have similarly encouraged others to do the same. So I am profoundly grateful to the Chicago Bar Association and to the Chicago Bar Foundation for this very distinguished recognition. I would also like to acknowledge his former law clerks for establishing this award in Justice Stevenson's name and thereby keeping the legacy of this great man and jurist alive. I especially want to thank the selection committee and everyone who submitted letters of nomination on my behalf. I am deeply honored and humbled by your support. I particularly want to thank Barbara Flores, who took it upon herself to spearhead and organize my nomination process. I also want to congratulate my co-honorees, many of whom I've had the privilege of working with and are indeed worthy of this honor. To my court staff, I want to extend my heartfelt appreciation for your continued dedication and willingness to go the extra step. I would be remiss if I didn't thank all of the members of the Diversity Scholarship Foundation, particularly Abigail Sue and Carol Sales for their efforts in creating opportunities for the young people in our profession. Lastly, but definitely not least, I want to thank my wife, Terry, and my daughter, Renee, for their continued loving support. As always, all that I do would never be possible without both of you standing by my side.
Our next recipient, Justice Mary K. Rochford.
To have my name even whispered in connection with Justice John Paul Stevens, or have my name join the past and current recipients of the Stevens Award, is an unmatched honor. I hold Justice Stevens in tremendous esteem. I admire those who have or who are now receiving the Stevens Award and have been blessed to count some as mentors, colleagues, and friends. My sincere thanks goes to the selection committee, and my congratulations goes to my fellow recipients. I have experienced tremendous joy in being a part of the legal profession and by serving the public, and have considerable appreciation and affection for those who have walked this path with me and who have guided me in the right direction. I thank our Supreme Court for choosing me to work with the Civil Justice Division of the Administrative Office of the Illinois Courts, the Chicago Bar Foundation, and others to enhance access to our civil courts and close the justice gap. I applaud the Chicago Bar Association and the Chicago Bar Foundation for advancing our legal profession and supporting those lawyers and organizations providing legal aid and pro bono representation to our residents in need. These lawyers truly are the bedrock of our system and are selflessly dedicated to the protection of those who face dire legal circumstances. Justice John Paul Stevens has been described as a steadfast guardian of the fair and effective administration of justice for all, regardless of their station, and a strong advocate of pro bono representation. As such, on this day, I encourage Illinois lawyers to engage in pro bono representation and to embrace those entities who bolster legal aid assistance to our community. The personal reward in using your legal competency and experience to assist a neighbor in time of distress will be immense, and your efforts will be beneficial and lasting. Thank you all.
Our final recipient, TCHEN.
As a longtime member of the CBA and former officer of the CBF, as well as a longtime admirer of Justice John Paul Stevens, before my stint in Washington, I was a regular attendee at this luncheon and really had no expectation that I would ever be among those celebrated with this incredible honor. Indeed, you can tell I had no expectation of such an outcome this year, as I'm in New York today with a long-standing speaking engagement for the New York Times. So I'm deeply sorry that I cannot be there in person today. My thanks to all of you gathered today, and especially to Steve Elrod and Carrie DeSanto, our presidents, and to two of the hardest working and most visionary leaders I know, Terry Murphy and Bob Glaves. I've long thought that not only was I blessed to practice in a profession that I love, but it has been my great good fortune to be an Illinois lawyer. From Myra Bradwell to Abraham Lincoln to the present day, we have in this state a rich heritage of Illinois lawyers who have taught not just those of us in our state, but everyone around the country how to best represent the ideals of our profession. That includes the person in whose name we gather today, Justice John Paul Stevens, and that includes so many of you here in the room. I've learned from all of your examples, and my achievements that you recognize today are because of you. Those ideals, which are the ideals that the CBA and CBF have championed for so long, include a commitment to equal justice for all, the importance of stare decisis and the rule of law, the obligation we all share in ensuring that every person, no matter their income, their gender, race, or ethnicity, or their station in life, can come before our system of justice and have their rights protected. I feel compelled before I close to note that we are living through an extraordinary moment in history, where those ideals are under threat as never before, and where we, as lawyers and as the guardians at the gates of our justice system, need to speak out and stand up to protect those ideals. This award reminds me of the important role we have as lawyers in this historical time, and calls on me to recommit to the highest ideals of our profession. Thank you again for this great honor and for your continued guidance and friendship.
I think I can speak on behalf of everyone in this room to each of the recipients. Thank you for inspiring us. The 9 men and women that received the award today are among the finest attorneys and judges in our profession. They best exemplify Justice Stevens' commitment to public service and integrity, and it's therefore fitting that they received one of the highest awards that we have in the Chicago legal profession. Thank you all for being here today. We appreciate it, and congratulations again to the 9 recipients.